Welcome you to our final, believe it or not, our final Coffee with the Community for 2015-2016. My name is Dallas Ackerman. I'm the Director of Communications with the Liberty District, and we have a little bit of a different format for you here today. We're going to have, as you can see, two chairs up here. That means we're going to have a conversation, and Dr. Tucker is going to join me here, and we're going to take some questions from the audience. We have a few questions that were pre-recorded and hit upon all the important information taking place in the district. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Dr. Jeremy Tucker, the Superintendent of Liberty Public Schools.
Thank you, Dallas.
Good morning to you, and glad you could join us here for a few minutes and not only look back at this school year, but to also look ahead, work already underway as far as planning goes for next year.
Sure.
But again, just to begin, I just wanted to maybe look back at this year. Where did it go, first of all? We're already wrapping up the school year, and maybe just talk about some of the highlights, some of the celebrations, a lot to celebrate.
Yeah, I think I've asked myself that at the end of each month, asking where did it go, thinking that it might slow down, but it never has. And so we've been flying throughout the 2015-16 school year. As far as celebrations, there's certainly a lot to celebrate, both at the individual student level and growth over the course of this year as kids have learned and experienced new things. But then certainly on the staff level, in that we have a phenomenal team. And I call us a team because whether you're a board member, administrator, classroom teacher, staff person, regardless of your role, we have phenomenal people in our school system. And so I think that's a lot to be celebrated. All the way to activities and athletics and the various programming that we have, from state qualifiers to state champions. I hate to start listing them all because I would inevitably leave somebody out. But we have had a very, very successful year.
We were talking earlier this morning about some of the highlights and things to celebrate, and we had an opportunity to go to Liberty Academy earlier this week, and just all of the real world experiences. And I see Colleen Jones in the back of our room. She is in the middle of that work. I cannot think of a year where we have seen day in, day out, week in, week out, all of the unbelievable opportunities for our students.
Yeah, and I think collectively it's probably a critical point where we're shifting paradigms a little bit, and really focusing on that, call it real world, relevant, authentic learning experience, whatever you want to dub it. It is a little bit of a shift, and that learning not only happens inside the four walls of a classroom, but if anything, if we can tap into experts and connect them to the classroom, you're probably having more meaningful learning experiences. So whether it is a small mom and pop shop that comes into a classroom and spends 30 minutes to 45 minutes with a group of third graders talking about their work and what they do, to students yesterday at Liberty Academy that were taking soil samples with various industries in agriculture and in farming, to be able to assess whether it's right for growing or whether something needs to be tweaked or certain things need to be added to the soil composition. That's the relevancy that we want for all of our learners. And we can say that we're seeing that across the entire system as early as pre-K all the way through grades 12 and really on every single campus. So programs that we might highlight that you likely hear about are the Northland Center for Advanced Professional Studies. A couple of years ago, Colleen Jones helped, and I think we had maybe less than a dozen students enrolled in that program. To preparing for next year, we have over 100 from our two high schools that will be participating in that, making us the largest participating district, by the way, with the Northland CAPS program. Another emphasis on partnership is to be able to allow teachers to think of possibilities by getting them out of their comfort zone and out of the four walls of their classroom. And so last summer, we had a summer externship experience, which took classroom teachers into the workplace, into various companies and corporations across the Northland and across Kansas City to see the work that they're doing. Through that experiences, those teachers were able to come back to their classrooms and, having identified a project that they could work with those companies on, conveyed that to their students and allow their students to run with possible solutions and prototyping a design or a product or problem solving something that would help them manage their organization a little bit better and to be a little bit more efficient. We're fortunate to be continuing that program again this summer in July, and so we'll have close to about 10 to 12 teachers participating in that program in hopes of just continuing to grow that from year to year to year as we're able.
That's awesome. I mentioned earlier we wanted to leave plenty of time to have not only our audience here ask questions,
Sure.
But also we have a new feature this month. You know, we're rolling it out. It's our questions from the street. So
It's
we
like-
actually,
Is
we
this
had-
like the Tonight Show?
yeah,
Okay.
very relevant questions
good.
as far as district topics.
Okay.
And we have 3 of them today. And let's go ahead and roll the first one.
Great.
Here.
How do you feel that the one-to-one initiative with computers in our district has been going the past year or so?
Okay.
Very relevant question to lead us off.
That is great. We're fully integrated one-to-one in grades K through 12. And just to share with you, for those of you that don't know what that looks like, in grades K through 2, we have iPad minis that are in the hands of every single classroom student. In grades 3 through 7, we have Chromebooks, which is a laptop that is provided to every single student. And in grades 8 through 12, we switch it up a little bit with a MacBook Air. So Trey Kotzer is here this morning in our audience, and him and his team have done a phenomenal job. You can imagine with over 12,000 students, couple that with staff devices across the system, you've got a lot of devices to be able to manage on a day in and day out basis. And so even this week as they're wrapping up the school year, the task for them is to recollect the majority of those devices, scrub them, clean them, change out things that need to be replaced, and then get them back in the hands of kids ready for August. That's more of the technical side of things. From an instructional standpoint, there's really technology viewed in 2 ways: to be able to enhance curriculum, but then on the other hand, to be able to transform curriculum. And so we tend to think of our integration of technology in respect to a model that's referred to as the SAMR model. And the SAMR model stands for substitution and augmentation, where on the front end, if you're simply just enhancing your curriculum, you're using technology to substitute perhaps some of the work that you're doing in a classroom, or maybe enhancing or augmenting the work that's being done in the classroom. If you're utilizing technology to truly transform it, you're taking your curriculum and you're modifying it based on the technology that's available to you. And then finally, you're also redefining it entirely and allowing for technology, be it a laptop or be it a mobile device, be it an iPad mini, whatever the case may be, to move from that enhancing the experience to truly transforming the experience. And you can imagine in a system of our size, classrooms and staff are on varying degrees of that spectrum from enhancement to transformation, and that's okay. We want to continue to support them and provide professional development, because the reality is our kids today will use technology most likely for the rest of their lives. And so what better time to be able to equip them than early on, but then also share with them the need to be responsible and good digital citizens in terms of utilizing technology.
Very good. And there may be a follow-up question or 2 on that topic, but
Sure.
We will take those from our live audience as we move along. But let's go back to
Okay.
the board. We have another question coming up right here.
I've noticed the schools are getting really crowded lately, and I was wondering when we're going to get new additions or buildings built.
We might have to rename this questions from the hallway.
Yeah, I like that. An empty hallway, by the way. I noticed that.
Well, obviously, the increased growth in student population has been a topic in Liberty Public Schools,
Absolutely.
one of the fastest growing districts in the state, and that
Yeah.
will continue for the next several years. Your response to that? Good question.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I'll point to our team in that this is something that from our board level to our cabinet level, we've been looking at and monitoring very closely over the last 2 years and even prior. I'm going to go back to the fall. In the fall, we conducted a demographic study, which was really to update our numbers and our figures with the help of our demographer. And our demographer came back after consulting with the City of Liberty, the City of Kansas City, a variety of developers. As you see rooftops coming in and around Kansas City and the Liberty area, we need to have those conversations and those relationships built with our developers. And so the ensuing report that we shared with our board back early in the fall alluded to, for the next 10-year window, about a 2 to 3% growth trajectory, which was pretty steady. We've seen years past where it's been a little bit higher than that in terms of a 4 to 5% growth trajectory, but really looking at planning in accordance with that demographic report. So 2 to 3% for the next 10 years. They gave us a little bit of a glimpse beyond that, but weren't really willing to put that into paper. So that's really our demographic projection moving forward. On the planning side of things, we've been working on our facility master plan and looking to try to revise that and update that. We're very fortunate and thankful to our citizens in our community that assisted us back in 2013 with our bond issue. And so the last couple of summers have been incredibly busy working on construction projects. We were able to finalize the last two from Liberty High School and Liberty North earlier this fall. Had a very brief window of reprieve, and then we were back at the drawing board as far as thinking about facility master planning. We went through the process of selecting an architect and have begun conversations with our Board of Education and planning ahead and what that might look like. So this summer, albeit we won't have as much construction going on, we'll be neck deep in facility master planning in the sense that we'll be going back into every single one of our schools, looking at our demographic projections, assessing our space needs, whether it's at the elementary, the middle level, the high school level, in terms of taking an assessment of where our facilities are based on our projected or our continued growth. And so as we develop that assessment, we really feel that we'll be able to list what our needs are and then begin the process with the Board of Education of prioritizing what those needs are to stay ahead of our continued growth needs. So that's exciting. It's challenging at the same time. On another note, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we've also spent a tremendous amount of time looking at our ability for the future to be able to manage our debt, but then also continue to manage our growth. So with the help of our finance department, we've looked at our debt management structure. We've done some refunding, some refinancing to try to take advantage of current interest rates. And so as we look to the future of Liberty Public Schools and future bond issues, we're confident that probably the next two bond issues, we hope to be able to put them on a ballot at a no tax levy increase, if not maybe even the third bond issue from now. So we're going to continue to monitor that and certainly keep our community informed as to the progress that's being made and what the plans for the future look like for our school system.
And as we talk about overcrowding, and to go back to her question, I've been in this district 14 years, have seen Shoal Creek Elementary
Sure.
with a lot of mobile units in the east parking lot, and other facilities in the district. As we sit right here in the spring, summer of 2016, could you give us an update of how our facilities look as far as student population? Are we in pretty good shape as it currently sits, is what you talk about planning for the future, though?
I can tell you right now at 10:15 on Thursday morning that we sit pretty well. But we have a few months to go prior to students coming back for the 16-17 school year, as far as August 17th when school kicks off. So to answer your question, yes, I think we're sitting well. We monitor our classroom spaces in terms of classroom teacher ratios. We really watch that from now until October in terms of our growth and trying to see if we hit the mark with our demographic projection or not. As far as the needs for additional space, we've really approached it in looking at our spaces differently, in maximizing our square footage and taking advantage of pretty much every nook and cranny, from learning stairs being integrated to some of our campuses, to now really designing space that is flexible in nature, that kids can spill over into a hallway or into a flex space to be able to utilize that. The other thing that I would challenge us to do is to really be thinking about time differently in how we utilize schedules at the middle level or at the high school level, as more and more kids are interacting with community partners and businesses during the course of their school day. That inevitably frees up some space within the building level. So that's an issue that we're still working on and trying to define what that looks like for our system, but then certainly monitoring over the course of the next couple of months as we, from day to day, will continue to have new families move to our system, move to our community. At the same time, not forsaking the quality that we provide our students. We certainly want to maintain that.
Very good. We have one more question from the street.
Okay.
So, after 2 years of being open, how are things going at Epic Elementary?
And another great question.
Yeah,
Always
definitely.
a topic.
I had a chance to be over at Epic yesterday and was visiting with some fourth grade students and their teachers that were working on cohorts, is what they're calling them. And they are projects that students are collaborating together on. And they range from students putting together a jingle, and in terms of something they're doing for their school, all the way to performing a skit or a play, all the way to problem solving with Hot Wheels, to coding. The end goal is the same, and that these students are all working on the same curriculum or on the same standard, but the means of getting there looks different, from the play to the jingle to the coding to you name it. And really, it's in an effort to allow for students to have choice in terms of engaging them in their areas of interest. So if you're a performer, you're probably going to pick a play or maybe the jingle piece. If you're more of a technology guy or girl, you may tap into the coding experience along the way. So they've been very intentional about focusing on engagement at Epic Elementary. And so to answer the question, how's year 2 been? It's been very successful. How do we measure that is probably a greater question that people might have, and that we can measure it academically as we see how the school's performing on state assessments, and they perform incredibly well. But I think there's more to it than just a state assessment, and that's probably the daily interactions that we have as we walk through that particular school in those classrooms, and that's seeing the engagement levels and how significantly engaged kids are. So it's been great, but at the same time, I would mirror that with our other schools, and that we're seeing very similar experiences at all of our elementary schools. And it's caused our middle level to be able to think a little differently as well, because guess what? They're going to inherit students from Epic Elementary and from other elementary schools that have had those rich, engaged experiences along the way, that have been used to connecting with partners in the community, or have been used to developing projects and presentations that engage authentic audiences. And so as we see that continue to grow across the system, one of the things we're going to be very intentional about this next year is really focused on support and training of teachers and around project-based learning. And so it's one thing to say, yeah, I do projects in my classroom. It's another thing to be able to have the foundational understanding and training to be able to understand the components of it for the sake of fidelity, but then certainly for the sake of allowing kids to tap into their voice and certainly their choice as they continue to engage in learning experiences.
Very good. I mentioned we want to leave some time for our live audience to ask some questions
Sure.
as well. But I kind of liked the questions from the street segment.
Definitely.
I'm going to give everyone a teaser that we very well might integrate this into our Coffees with the
Okay.
Community moving forward to next school year. So be looking for that.
A live stream.
And with iPhones and the easy way to submit video, we might be soliciting questions from our community
Oh,
more
that's
and
great.
more as we move along.
That's
So
great.
It could be a good opportunity for us. So as I mentioned, I have the stick microphone here in the front. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand, and I am going to come to you, and you can ask a question. We would love to field a few of those before we wrap up here this morning. Anyone?
Questions from the group? Everyone's hesitant to go first. So.
Any questions? Hey, that's fine.
Oh, that easy.
It's a
They let me
quiet
off the
group.
hook. That's right. That's right.
Well, before we wrap up, we do want to hit on a few things as we look toward next school year. I
Yeah.
mean, planning already taking place. We'll have some retreats over the summer, and then we just move right into 16, 17. Thoughts as we look into the future.
You know, it's one thing to be able to talk with our community locally about the great things that we're doing and garner feedback and engage more. I think that's really a big emphasis for next year as we embark in trying to have more in-depth conversations and dialogue with our community, whether it's PTA, community partners, parents, senior citizens, whomever that might be, and really charting a path and course for our future and what that looks like. And that's something that we need to continually improve on and work to make an intentional focus on. The other thing that I would say is that the state and the federal level have a tremendous amount of influence on school districts. In some ways, they're incredibly supportive. In some ways, they're too supportive, and that we would rather have more local autonomy at the local district level. And really, right now, we're in a transition period nationally. And I would say that we've ushered out No Child Left Behind, to where now we're transitioning to a new act, if you're not familiar with that, and that is the Every Student Succeeds Act. And what we're told is that that will allow for more local autonomy in and around some of the assessment pieces that have been around for a number of years, the curriculum standards, for example. I say all that to say that during this transition period at the state level, we have had recent adoption of the Missouri Learning Standards, which were formerly the Common Core. And if you followed that, that was a pretty contentious issue across our nation and our country. But now that our state has landed on a set of standards that really provide some concrete direction for school districts across the state of Missouri, our next step will be, how does assessment then play out in respect to the new Missouri Learning Standards? Do we continue to maintain the MAP testing? Do we have the end-of-course exams at the high school level? Do we continue to provide for the ACT? Regardless of what that looks like, to be able to support teachers in making certain that the academic experiences of our kids equip them to be able to be successful. But that really shouldn't be our sole focus. The conversation this morning around partnership and engagement and authentic learning experiences should really be our focus, and a byproduct of that should be high academic performance. So we need to convey that as much as we're able to. The other piece of that, along with assessment, is probably the area of accreditation. As the state of Missouri kind of walks through that process of accreditation, really looking to see what they emphasize. Are they going to continue to emphasize assessment, or perhaps more focus on some of these learning experiences that we've talked about here this morning? You know, at the federal level, you also see varying agendas and efforts that are underway depending on who's in office, and we're at a critical time here in our country in respect to how that plays out. Are we truly going to have the autonomy that we think we should have? Or are we going to see more federal involvement that, rather than allowing us to be progressive, allows us to kind of have some barriers along the way? So lots of conversations to come as we enter into this next school year, but we're excited to have those discussions.
Before we wrap up, you are actually getting ready to wrap up your second year with us here in Liberty Public Schools.
Has it only been 2?
It's only,
Okay.
It's only been 2, getting ready for number 3 here,
Yeah.
coming up in July. I just wanted you to reflect on your time here, the last nearly 24 months. Anything
Sure.
that surprised you? I hear a lot of folks will ask you that question every now and then.
Well, I had 2 events happen this week. One was on a personal level with my daughter and her 5th grade graduation. And I was talking earlier that, you know, my wife's an elementary school teacher, I was a high school teacher, so we feel like we've got the ends covered. We're walking into the middle years now, and we're not nearly as confident, but certain that she'll have a great experience at Heritage Middle School with the staff that they have. Earlier this week, at a graduation speech, one of the seniors remarked that their class got gypped this year because they didn't get any snow days, and that really Blue Snow Day didn't really count as a snow day, albeit that's why we're coming back to school on Monday for a half day. So in looking back over the last 24 months, I can't express my gratitude for the board and the work that they do. You don't see it always, and sometimes it's behind, you know, in a closed session or in a board meeting, but they spend a tremendous amount of time and energy getting up to speed on everything that's going on in the district and providing their direction and their insight on what they feel is best for the community, and that they do represent our community. So we have a tremendous Board of Education along with our administrative team here. I think my desire is to continue that mindset of service in terms of everything that we do. And you'll hear me tell people this all the time, we're a work in progress. And I hope we don't stop saying that, because at the moment that we do, complacency tends to seep in a little bit. So on a personal level, our family loves Liberty. I do have a 5th grader going up to middle level next year. I have a 2nd grader who will dive into the 3rd grade next year head first. But it's been great. We've had a great transition, and it's all due to the welcome that we've had, but certainly the quality of people that we have in our community.
Very good. Well, that is going to do it for our final Coffee with the Community here from the District Administration Center. I hope everyone at home enjoyed this. Thank you to our live audience for coming by and joining us as well. And as a reminder, as we always say, this is not only for our live audience, but it is available on our YouTube channel, and that should be loaded up here very soon, and also replayed on our cable TV outlet, KLPS TV Channel 18. Reminder for everyone listening or watching at home, first day of school, 2016, August the 17th. Yep. It's going to be a Wednesday, so mark your calendars for that, and we'll be pushing out a lot of information to get everyone ready for the 16-17 school year. So again, from the DAC, Dallas Ackerman, along with the superintendent, Dr. Jeremy Tucker, thanks again for watching.
Thank you all.